r/AskReddit. Since we don't hear much about it. Ladies of Reddit. What was your worst meet the mom story? My mother-in-law found us, but as naked about to have sex, and lectured me for an hour about how Jesus says no, and then the next time she met me, she gave me STD pamphlets, because I should get checked out. As I'm obviously a loose woman. Super great first meeting, and even better second meeting. Been with my husband over 10 years, and I'm still the itch that corrupted her precious son, and why he left her to move in with me when we decided to start a life together. Jesus says no. This is the part where you point out to her that neither one of you is Jesus. And neither one of us said no. Instead we both said yes over and over and over again. Dating a guy for a few months. Go meet his mom, and she launches into the history of her abusive ex-husband and how/why/when he died. Kept going on and on about how she felt like a terrible parent because the guy wasn't successful. And on and on and on. And I don't really know what to say, so I'm just like oh and wow and, or because she isn't even letting me get a word in. Then I started noticing it in the guy I was dating. And bailed as soon as possible. Sounds exactly like a woman I know named Dana. Talks daily about the abusive dead husband. Endlessly. In detail. I know a Dana and this makes me sad. My ex's mom was a narcissist who seemed to be in love with her son. Not in the cute as EO. Gosh. I'm just so in love with my little guy normal mom way. Like. She clung on to him. Guilt tripping him into never abandoning her and ugh. She flirted with him. She pranced around in her underwear in front of us a few times. Doing this a whoops tee act that squicked me the hell out. But that's another story. I had a very brief first encounter with her. He was still living at home because she'd throw a fit whenever he'd suggest he move out. She would end up alternating between insisting that she come along wherever he went, she was married, BTW, and guilt tripping him by insisting he was a horrible, ungrateful son for even thinking of abandoning her. Anyway, he rushed me into his house and practically pushed me into his bedroom, man. As he's closing the door, I see these fingers jam themselves between the door and the door frame, preventing him from closing it. I then proceed to watch him shove his shoulder up against the door with all his weight as his mom desperately tries to claw her way into the room, trying to poke her head in, staring at me with this wild intensity and yelling, "Is this her? I wanna meet her. Comma. Open the door. I wanna meet her," as he yells back, "Yes. It's her. Go away. Mom. Mom. Go away. Stop. No. Like. Got him. Lady. No. I do not want to meet my new boyfriend's mother this way. This is not a great first impression. I'm scared." He finally manages to unwrap her fingers from around the door and shoves it closed. I hear her padding around outside in the hallway for a minute or two, and then she huffs and retreats to the den. I was then supposed to have sex with him. What a mood killer. My first real interaction with her was incredibly dramatic, but a bit less intense. I feel like I've written too much as is. So if anybody's curious, I'll tell that one. My first time actually meeting her didn't involve any introductions or small talk. This was around 2010. My boyfriend had just discovered American Apparel and loved their colorful men's briefs. So he bought a few pairs. He was goofing off in his pink undies with a pair of sunglasses. Made me take a picture and he posted it as his new profile picture on Facebook. An hour later, we are at his house, watching television when his mom gets back from work. Slams the door. Stomps through the kitchen. Huffing and puffing. Slamming cupboards. Stomps through the den right past us as she mutters to herself. Wrenches open the garage door and slams it behind her. As I hear it banging around in there, I shoot my boyfriend a nervous look. Like, what's happening? Should I leave? And he's bizarrely laid back about it. He just shrugs and tells me to ignore her. I mean, I'll try. I thought I'd be saying hello and properly introducing myself to her today, but everything's tense and moody. She keeps coming and going, stomping, slamming, muttering, pointedly ignoring us while clearly making an effort to have us notice her until my boyfriend finally calls out, "Mom, what's wrong?" She bursts into the den from the kitchen and starts yelling, "How can you do this? How? To me? Lady. What?" He asks for specifics, and she shouts this. Frankly, weird and unbelievable story about her co-worker showing her his updated Facebook profile picture. Why would her random co-worker be trolling his page? Why not admit you were on his profile? But whenever he asks her why it bothers her so much, she just sort of sputters and scowls. The entire time, I'm ignored and I'm glad. I've curled up into a little ball on the couch. I don't want to be the focus of her rage right now, and I just warily watch this exchange from my little space spot. Boyfriend finally huffs and tells her to get over it, and she wrenches open the garage door, glares at me, yells why would you throw it in my face, slams the door and disappears. Ducking awkward. But he doesn't even want to address the hichow that just went down. It's apparently nothing. All in all, it seems like his mother was upset by the fact some girl was taking pictures of her little boy in his undies. That she believed we were cruelly rubbing our relationship in her face via Facebook, and that it was all designed as an attempt to break her heart. She never actually said hello. Never introduced herself to me. We just had to pretend that everything was fine and act normal the next time we saw her. She was god awful to me once she finally started speaking to me. Just awful the entire 2 years I dated her son. We briefly got back together a year after we broke up. After he'd dated another girl for a while, who she'd jokingly threatened to stab, and my first time seeing her again went, "Hi, comma. It's been a while." She just stares at me dead-eyed from across the living room in painfully awkward silence for the slowest 5-10 seconds of my life. Turns to her son and quietly asks, "Can I talk to you in the den?" Ex but not ex-boyfriend and her argue in muffled tones for a while. Boyfriend storms out of the den as I awkwardly fiddle by the entryway. Shouts over his shoulder, "Duck, I'm fine," then grabs me, shoves me towards his room and lets me know his mother had told him that of all the girls you dated, she's the worst. Anybody but her. I told you how much I hate her. Why is she back? Thanks, lady. A lovely, warm welcome every time. Wow. Just, duck. What a psychopath. I have one from the guy who met my mom. Mom decided that I was taking too long to introduce him to her, so without my knowledge she went to his place of business, retail. Went up to the most handsome white guy there and said, "You must be Jay." He pointed to my boyfriend in the back of the store. She walked up to the only other white guy in the store and assumed he was Jay. Once it was clear that Jay, the only guy left, was brown, she proceeded to explain that we used to live next to some Mexicans and they weren't very nice to their women. He said that he wasn't Mexican. She insisted there would still be cultural similarities. Jay isn't his real name. Holy hit. I know. I thought Jay was his real name. I had a long-term live-in boyfriend. We moved to Florida together and I met his mother. She didn't speak English, which was understandable, they were from El Salvador. But then my boyfriend's father slapped her in the face while she cooked dinner. During some kind of spat. Totally stopped the conversation and was like, WTF. I was told to ignore it and that it was normal. I was 17 at the time, so I was pretty clueless. The relationship didn't work out because less than 3 months later he started beating on me. Normal? If anyone is reading this and going, "Hey, that sounds Lee," run. TBF. I was 17 and I was on the other side of the country from everyone I knew, at the mercy of this guy and his family. Had I made a stink, I'd had nowhere to go. And that, coupled with being young and dumb, meant I decided to go along with it instead of calling up my mommy and begging for a plane ticket home. My first real relationship in high school. Dated a Polish junior. His parents moved to the US from Poland when he was little and his mom was insanely protective of her first son. Met her after a few months and we were taking a weekend trip to the beach with my family, so my parents wanted to meet his etc. Pulled up to the house and his dad was so nice to my family and me, and the mom came out screaming in Polish. She ranted and raved, threw a box of Marlboros at my mom's face. We all got in the car and went to the shore and my boyfriend was pissed, but didn't seem like he was too surprised. We dated for a little over a year. During that time, his father was so nice to us, but the mom broke into his studio apartment, stole food we were going to make for dinner, and tossed all the cutlery and plates in the hall. His sister also punched him repeatedly when he asked why she did that. I found out the mom died a few years ago and honestly was kind of happy. She was ducking miserable and the dad didn't deserve to finish out his life with such a maniac. To clarify, the mom wasn't mentally ill, she was incredibly respectful and sweet to her sister's random hookups. She was protective of her son and the sister just behaved like her. Also hit her boyfriends. Also he has a studio apartment down the block in a house his dad owned. The dad moved him out because of how abusive his mom was to him. The mom came out screaming. In Polish. She ranted and raved. Threw a box of Marlboros at my mom's face. I mean, do you speak Polish? Maybe she was just giving you some cigarettes. Oh my god, thank goodness you're here. Smoke these. My boyfriend's mom doesn't speak English, and we were going to stay with her for a week before Christmas. On the way to the airport he told me that his mom actually doesn't know that we are coming because he wants to surprise her. How sweet. Except for real, your mom should know a strange girl is coming to stay with her. I was so pissed. When we get to her door he rings the doorbell and jumps and hides behind the bushes. Before I realized what he had done she opened the door and I'm just standing there alone. I probably looked like a Jehovah's Witness coming to talk to her about our Lord Jesus Christ. Talk about awkward. Edit. My boyfriend and I are still together and his mom will hopefully soon become my mother-in-law. I love his mom so much. We still can't communicate. And she has dementia now. And one day she will forget who I am. But hopefully this unique meeting keeps me in her mind a little longer. Was he 12? I hear stories like this, and I'm actually amazed that a full-blown adult thinks this is an acceptable way to act. I knew my ex had a religious family, but didn't realize how religious until I met them. They were Pentecostal and prayed in tongues and channeled God. They were really into it. On my first day of meeting the parents, his mother took me to her friend's house where her prayer group chanted over me after putting oil all over my body. I wasn't raised around such strangeness, so I felt very awkward and I had to bite my lip to keep myself from breaking out into laughter. Mom was cool with me for a while until God told her I had practiced witchcraft and practiced the dark arts. Once she had that in her head, the relationship was doomed. We eventually broke up. Her son was super hot, but he thought fossils were the devil's trickery. He probably still thinks he dodged a witch. Damn man, where are you from? I'm from central Canada and I always sort of assumed those sorts of people were half made up. Wild story. Seems you may have dodged a bullet there. They aren't. My mom used to scam religious folks for a living when I was younger, and even here in Canada those folks are everywhere. Not a lady. But when I introduced myself to my mom basically asked for an introduction. How I met her etc. Then told me, why don't you go outside and help your father finish building the shed? Sweetie? My so gave this worried look back at me. Hours pass. I can hear through the open window of the house that the two of them are just laughing their asses off. When I get back into the house they are laughing about something and I ask about what was so funny. Oh, nothing sweetie. Just getting to know your girlfriend. They've made a bunch of cookies at this point. Absolutely delicious. I asked my so what they talked about and all I got out of her was I'll tell you later. Little did I know. My mom went into the attic, fetched a photo album of my entire life, basically. A photo album that has pictures of me running outside stark naked. Pictures of me digging for gold in my nose. Pictures of my awkward teens and heavy metal phase. Since then, I have never heard the end of it from my so. Well played, mom. Well played, duck you mom. Surprisingly wholesome. Was not expecting this, I can tell you. When I met my husband's parents, I didn't know that the mom cooked with 0 spices. As in absolute 0. Not even salt and pepper. So at our first meeting, a dinner at the parents' house, the food was so bland. No sauces, gravies, spices or flavoring of any kind whatsoever. Their only condiment was ketchup, which I detest. The other family members drowned their food in it, except mom. There was no reason for it. She just thought good food doesn't need seasoning. I struggled through the meal of a plain hamburger patty with plain mashed potatoes and some sort of vegetable mush. The following week, at Sunday dinner, I brought a small container of salt and pepper. When I discreetly tried to salt and pepper the plain baked potato, dead silence at the table and all eyes on me. I froze. The mother-in-law, to be sniffed a tear back, and left the table quickly. Dead silence while I waited for the floor to swallow me up. The husband-to-be reached over and picked up the tiny salt and pepper container and used it. Passed it to his brother, who used it, and on around the table. Conversation resumed and the mom quietly returned to the table, refusing to eat. Later, she was telling her son, my husband-to-be, that I obviously thought she was a dreadful cook, since good food did not require salt and pepper. To his ever-loving credit he said, Mom, you cook with love. But even good food needs a little seasoning. There was a reason I loved this man. It took a lot to stand up to his mom. A very strong-minded woman. They never invited us to dinner again. All the years we were married. Because I dared to put salt and pepper on food. Outside of this issue, we had a reasonable relationship. Not the greatest, but far from the worst. One might say she was salty. Underrated post. Thanks for adding some flavor to the original post. And for peppering us with your witty banter. Ducking like and subscribe.